A calculated accident, a fabricated injury, and a love caught in the crossfire. Mai Huong's trap for Toan is closing in. While she lures him on a medical trip far from the city, Diem receives a mysterious envelope exposing a sinister truth. Mai Huong may be behind every shadow, every threat, every near miss that has haunted her. Torn between warning Toan and fearing he won't believe her, Diem hesitates, letting silence become her biggest risk. Will the truth reach him before it's too late? Subscribe now and follow this gripping journey of love, deception, and dangerous secrets. Mai Huong had always been a master of appearances. Even before the accident, she knew exactly how to tilt her head, when to let her voice tremble, and how to catch a man's sympathy without making it too obvious. Now, with the injury she had so carefully orchestrated, her performance had reached a new level. Wrapped in a pale silk scarf, hair falling in soft waves over her shoulders, she sat in the cafe across from Toan, her crutch leaning conspicuously against the table. Every time she shifted in her seat, she allowed a small wince to cross her face, the kind that made people instinctively want to help. Toan, already feeling indebted to her for saving him from the near collision with the motorbike, didn't question the severity of her condition. Guilt was a heavy weight pressing on his chest, and Mai Huong knew exactly how to press on it harder. "I don't think the hospital here is helping much," she said softly, her fingers tracing the rim of her teacup. "The pain hasn't gone away, sometimes it feels even worse. My old family doctor is in Bo Loc, and he knows my medical history. It's a bit far, but I trust him more than anyone else." The mention of a distant town was deliberate. Bo Loc wasn't just far, it was secluded. A trip there would mean hours in the car, perhaps even staying overnight. Mai Huong kept her eyes lowered as if she were afraid to ask, though she had already calculated his response. Toan hesitated for a moment, glancing out at the busy street. He had deadlines, meetings, and 100 other responsibilities. But then he looked back at her, the faint paleness in her cheeks, the way she cradled her leg, the faint tremor in her voice, and guilt won over logic. "All right," he said finally, his tone gentle. "If it helps you recover, we'll go. I'll clear my schedule." A flicker of triumph flashed in Mai Huong's eyes, but it was gone so quickly that Toan never noticed. Instead, she let out a relieved sigh, leaning back as though a burden had been lifted. "Thank you, Toan. I didn't want to trouble you." Trouble him? That was precisely her goal. Every detail of this plan had been rehearsed in her mind: the small hotel near the doctor's clinic, the unexpected delays in scheduling her checkup, the way she could use the quiet nights to chip away at his loyalty to Diem. Out of sight, out of mind, Mai Huong believed in that rule. And she intended to keep Diem far out of sight for as long as possible. She watched him pull out his phone to rearrange his appointments, the crease in his brow deepening as he typed. He didn't notice the way her lips curved slightly, not in gratitude but in satisfaction. Everything was falling into place. When their drinks arrived, she shifted in her seat again, feigning another twinge of pain. Toan instinctively reached forward, steadying her elbow as she adjusted herself. His touch was gentle, protective, and she let it linger a second longer than necessary. "I'll need to rest a lot during the trip," she murmured, her gaze meeting his for just a moment, long enough to create the illusion of vulnerability. "But it will be nice to have someone I trust by my side." Toan offered her a faint smile, unaware that every word she spoke was part of a carefully woven net, one he was already entangled in. By the time they left the cafe, the decision was made. Tomorrow morning, they would drive to Bo Lock. For Mai Huong, it wasn't just a trip to see a doctor, it was the opening act of a far more dangerous game. While Mai Huong was already savoring her small victory, far across the city, Diem sat alone in her rented room, the afternoon light slanting weakly through the thin curtains. The air was still, heavy, carrying that strange quiet that comes before something changes. She had been staring blankly at her laptop for nearly an hour, unable to focus on work. Ever since she saw Toan that morning, gently helping Mai Huong into his car, an ache had been sitting deep in her chest, refusing to leave. The knock on her door was so soft that at first she thought she'd imagined it. When she opened it, no one was there, only a plain brown envelope lying on the floor. No name, no return address, just her own name written in hurried black ink. A faint chill crept over her as she picked it up, almost as if her body knew before her mind that the contents would change everything. She sat back down at her small desk and tore it open. A stack of photographs slid out, curling slightly at the edges. Her breath caught the moment her eyes fell on the first one, Mai Huong, standing in a narrow alleyway, her arm linked with a tall man in a leather jacket. The man's face was partially hidden by shadows, but the way he leaned toward her, the confidential tilt of their bodies, told its own story. She shuffled through the rest, her fingers trembling. Another photo showed the same man passing her a thick envelope. Another caught her glancing around as if to make sure no one was watching. Then came the note, written in the same hurried scrawl as her name on the envelope. "She is the one who hired people to follow you. Every accident, every threat, it's her." The words seemed to burn into her mind. Diem's pulse quickened, her breath coming short. Suddenly, every strange moment of the past months connected like pieces of a puzzle she hadn't realized she was assembling. The unsettling feeling of being watched when walking home at night. The random motorbike that had nearly clipped her. The shadow she'd caught in the reflection of a shop window, gone the moment she turned. Her stomach churned. The realization wasn't just shocking, it was humiliating. She had endured those nights alone, convinced she was overthinking, while Toan had been spending more and more time with the woman who, if these photographs were telling the truth, had orchestrated every single incident. She pushed the photos away as if they were toxic, her hands pressing hard into her temples. Should she tell him? The question cut sharply through the panic. Her first instinct screamed yes. She should call him right now, send him the photos, tell him everything before it was too late. But then she remembered the way he'd looked at Mai Huong this morning, how gentle his voice had been when he asked if she was all right. Would he even believe her? Or would he think she was just jealous, trying to tear him away from someone who had saved him? The thought of his eyes narrowing in doubt, his tone cooling, made her throat tighten. Her phone lay on the desk, screen dark, reflecting her conflicted face. She reached for it, her thumb hovering over the messaging app. All she had to do was attach the images, type a few words, and press send. It was so easy, and yet her hands felt as if they weighed 1,000 pounds. Outside, the wind shifted, rattling the window pane. Somewhere, a motorbike roared past, its sound fading into the distance. Diem stared at the photographs one more time, then at her phone. Her heart told her to speak, but her mind whispered that this was not the moment. And so she sat, frozen between action and silence, unaware that with every second she hesitated, Mai Huong's plan was moving further into place. The phone sat there like a living thing, its black screen swallowing the dim afternoon light, reflecting her face back at her, a pale, tight-lipped stranger she barely recognized. Diem's thumb hovered over the screen, trembling. She could almost see the message in her head, the photographs, the note, the truth. It was all there, ready to be sent to Toan with a single tap. And yet, the silence in the room pressed down on her, making her chest feel heavy, as if the air itself was urging her to wait. She thought of him, how his eyes softened when he looked at Mai Huong earlier that day. The way he had adjusted the crutch under her arm, as though she were something fragile he needed to protect. That tenderness had once been hers. Now it belonged to someone else. Or at least, that's how it felt. Her breath came slow and shaky. What if she sent the message and he dismissed it outright? What if he accused her of making things up because she couldn't stand to see him care for another woman? The sting of that rejection would be worse than his absence. It would mean that the bond they had, the trust she'd thought unshakable, was already broken. She set the phone down, pushing it away as if it were burning her fingertips. Her gaze landed on the photographs again, scattered across the desk like pieces of an ugly truth she couldn't ignore. The faces stared back at her, Mai Huong's careful, calculating smile, the shadowed man's guarded posture. Proof, yes. But proof in the wrong hands could become nothing more than suspicion. The hum of the city outside drifted into the room. Somewhere below, a street vendor was calling out his wares, the sound muffled by distance. A motorbike engine sputtered and faded. Life was moving on, unbothered, while she sat here trapped between two impossible choices. Diem stood abruptly, pacing the small length of the room. Her bare feet made soft sounds against the worn wooden floor. She needed to do something, anything, to quiet the storm inside her. She thought of calling the unknown sender, but there was no number, no trace of where the envelope had come from. Whoever had sent it had vanished as quickly as they'd appeared. She imagined Toan's voice, deep and steady, saying her name. She imagined him frowning at the photos, looking back at her with a question in his eyes. In one version of the scene, he believed her instantly, anger flashing across his face at the betrayal. In another, he shook his head, turned away, and walked straight back to Mai Huong. The second version scared her more than she wanted to admit. A sharp pang of loneliness cut through her, almost making her knees buckle. She leaned against the edge of the desk, her fingers curling around the photographs again. Her heart whispered that she owed it to him and to herself to speak up. Her mind countered with a single word: wait. Wait for what? For more proof? For him to see it himself? Or for the moment when the damage could no longer be undone? Her phone buzzed suddenly, vibrating against the wood. The sound jolted her, and she snatched it up without thinking. A message from Toan. Only 2 words, on the way. Her pulse raced. Was he coming here? Or was he on the way to Bao Lok with Mai Huong? The thought made her stomach twist. She typed a quick reply, then erased it before sending. Her fingers hovered again, but in the end, she let the screen go dark. She sank into her chair, clutching the photographs tightly. Outside, the light was fading, and the first drops of evening rain tapped against the window. Somewhere far away, Toan was driving into the night, carrying her silence with him.